What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about developing more discipline and how you can start to apply some more discipline in the present moment by facing the undesirable things that you might be avoiding. For example, if you know in your own self that, hey, I kind of need to get a little bit more fit. I really should do some push-ups or some sit-ups or limit my calories or whatever. It applies to everything. But then a lot of us just will maybe put that on the back burner or put it in this hypothetical future that never manifests in the present moment. But when you're developing discipline, a lot of times it's those fears that are keeping you from living the life that you're actually desiring to live. And so by facing the things that are maybe causing you anxiety, maybe feel uncomfortable, nervous energy about, like today, I had to, my grandpa, he died, and there was like a funeral, and they asked me to play guitar at his service, and there was some like kind of an anxious energy about it, mainly because it was like family, and I didn't want to screw up, and all of these kinds of what ifs and woulda, coulda, shouldas that can enter into consciousness. And there was a time where I was almost crippled by those kinds of fears, but just over this progression of, hey, there's a fear, I'm going to face it, I'm going to push through it, I'm going to take the action anyway, despite how I feel. You start to develop more and more discipline to enter into the unknown, or these scenarios that might be fearful, might be scary, might be borderline like intense, but through facing it, you start to realize that fear in itself is just a mental activity. It's in these thoughts and these imaginings, most of the time unconscious, of like the things that you don't want to happen. And so much of like this metaphysical principle of like being present, being mindful, being aware of what you're impressing into the subconscious mind, you're able to see those imaginings for what they are and go, well, I actually don't want that experience to happen. If I can choose, which you can choose, we can always choose to not unconsciously impress the subconscious mind, but to use that as fuel to narrow in our what we do want. So, for example, in that experience where it's like you have those imaginings of like, oh, maybe I'll forget what I'm doing, or maybe I'll look stupid, or maybe I'll just like create bad energy, whatever the fear is. Instead of allowing that idea to become one with the emotion of fear, instead, take some conscious breathing, get back into the present moment, and instead impress the subconscious mind with what you do want, which is, like in that situation, to bring a heavenly energy to the situation, to inspire some positive energy, to project something positive to the situation, try to uplift the spirits of the people involved, all that kind of stuff. It's important as you're facing these undesirable things, or just like these things like I'm experiencing, like with getting my hip replaced in November. I go through physical therapy every day, even though a big part of me doesn't want to do it. Same thing, it's the same dramas manifesting through a different way, but how you do one thing, you can really start to transfer to everything, because it's all mental. And once you realize that, then the relationships, the activities, all of the stuff in the 3D world that we get to move around and experience starts to have a more spiritual root to it. And so like stretching and doing this physical therapy, again, as an example, a lot of times like in stretching, I think stretching can be applied to everything, because it's, again, getting right up to that fear barrier, pushing past it. And what I mean by that in like the stretching, say for example, take these Sharpies or whatever, like when I first started recovering, I could only maybe move my legs like that far apart, and that's it, and through just every day pushing it just a little bit, and then as you start to push it, well, then there's a mental narrative of like, oh, you're going to hurt yourself, you're pushing it too much, danger, or whatever the fear happens to be. But applying a lot of like the law of assumption and metaphysics, we're to embody the end in the here and now. It's like not looking at your body and the story associated with it of disease and illness and death and decay, but looking at it metaphysically as I am already perfect. My subconscious mind knows how to heal this this whatever's going on with me, and in fact, I'm already perfect. The problem is then trying to convince yourself of that, because there's already a lot of programming in your own subconscious. And this is something you can demonstrate in yourself as you're putting this into practice. But as you start to stretch, there's the story of like, oh, I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to hurt myself. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, that's not reflective of me being healed, or me being like in the ideal condition. So you have to face those mental fears and look at those mental resistances as why that your body's in the condition that it is. Maybe symbolically, like, okay, well, my subconscious is projecting this form, this body, and everything going on with it is exactly reflective of what I believe consciously and unconsciously. And when there's things that are dramatic weeds in the garden, so to speak, those are the things to really start to let go of and cultivate a better garden, a better temple. And so, when it comes to stretching, you go right up to the fear, knowing that as you hold in consciousness, I am healed, I am getting more mobility, and you start impressing the more desirable things and the truth of what God said is real about your body, to replace a lot of these thoughts of limitations, of danger, of fear, of separation, that your body's got its own will of its own, it's just doing whatever. It's like a lot of that thinking from the old identity, the old cursed identity, is like, oh, well, there's all these separate forces and it's all just random chaos. Not understanding that the same law that's a curse is also metaphysically a blessing, that you can use it both ways. And once you start to unpack what's already in the subconscious of, oh, I'm weak, I'm injured, I'm decaying, I can't heal from this is permanent, all of this stories, all of these lies basically that you're believing because what maybe your parents told you or some doctor told you. This for me has been a 20-year ordeal, and 25 probably. It's like been decades that I've been dealing with this. And it's like what they told me 20 something years ago. It's entirely different today, even by popular medicine. So like holding on to these stories and these beliefs so fervently is really kind of why we let the stuff go. But it's like you can't just let it go and just have nothing. You have to replace it with a more desirable thought process, a more desirable belief. And a belief is really a thought you've thought over and over again, but also have an expectancy that that's how things are. And so when you have an understanding about the dynamic between you and your creator, being within you in consciousness, and that all this healing that already going on without your conscious willpower or efforting or anything is constantly healing you in the present moment, constantly building you up, constantly strengthening you, constantly trying to direct you into more and more harmony, more and more function, more and more mastery over your mind and your emotions and your relationships and everything, And so I think it's kind of like a misconception on some level for like a lot of spiritual people, because I hear it very like all the time. It's like, well, I'm just going to take this body off like it's a dirty towel and fuck it, and I'm going to go in my new body. But then even that kind of mindset is like really kind of tied into this identity that you're going to drop this body to go where God is, even though God's in the eternal now and in the present moment, and you can connect with that energy. It's just more about, in my perspective, my belief system, it's more about what you're impressing into the subconscious, the kingdom of God within you, and then God's righteousness, which I believe is just putting your mindset in alignment with what God said is true about reality. For example, if you ask, believe, and receive, according to the Bible, you should be able to test that and demonstrate it for yourself. If it doesn't prove itself in the demonstration, then why do it? So, well, because you just gotta just be compliant to religion and religious beliefs. It's like, well, that's not accurate for me, at least. It's like I give a shit about what's true, not what people just do. People do all sorts of stupid shit, for no reason other than compliance and obedience. But, a lot of people don't even believe a lot of the things. They're just cowardly. But, like, from where I was coming from, I wanted to put the shit to the test. If it's true, then I want to do it. It's like, okay, well, if I'm doing something that I don't realize what I'm doing and I'm manifesting, like, hell onto myself, okay, well, if I do what I should be doing or thinking or whatever, when it says this is like how reality is, if you put it to the test, which I have put it to this, I know that's how it is, and it's like my life anymore has been just more and more of a realization about how true that is. And not only that, but as you let go of beliefs in like linear time even, and you just get more into the present moment, not even trying to like control it, but having the belief and the assumption in place that God has created everything perfectly. Everything's unfolding in the present moment perfectly. I can't screw it up. Not my past, not the future. It's all in God's hands. It needed to be exactly the way it is, and it's to get me to right here where I can now, really impress a lot of positive, things into my mind. But in that, I think that action needs to be talked about on some level, because again, with the spiritual people I hear sometimes, it's like, I get where they're coming from when there's like, thought is the action, which is true. But our old mindset doesn't believe that at all. The old mindset is into the material world, forcing shit, attacking, just by willpower, forcing shit to work. And just like repetition. And it's like a business on some level. It's like when you first start it, it's like you can get to a point where it's just like things are just flowing, and it doesn't require a lot of force. And then you do realize it's like, hey, it's the consciousness that's actually doing the work. But to get to that point of realization, you have to start taking new action. I think your body is a lot like that. Putting that to the test. I'm still, 1 pound away from hitting my weight loss target, which I might be at today. I don't know. Hopefully, it's like, Mike, you need to live in the end. And it's like, I know, I get it. But like, yeah, it's just like one of those things. I'm excited to actually hit that milestone, to then do a different one. But in that whole process, there's been not just a physical transformation, but also a mental transformation that wouldn't have happened unless action was taken. Because there's a lot of limiting beliefs and limiting assumptions about, oh, I'm so weak, oh, I'm so sickly, oh, I'm getting older and this gets harder to do this. All this bullshit, and it's like, that's not even true or real. And you start putting that to the test through taking this action and facing these fears, facing whatever. Oh, I don't want to go to the gym till I get in shape. It's like, what? It's backwards. It's like no one gives a fuck about what you're doing. Let it go. It's like, just go. It's like a lot of these people started off out of shape and now they're in shape because of just routine, discipline, repetition. And a lot of it, I believe, is in the mental activity. What happens as you're like lifting weights, exercising, you can be in a space of flow where you're not really thinking about anything, but a lot of times things come to the surface of your consciousness, especially if you're out of shape. It's like if you start doing a cardio exercise, for example, like swimming. I know I experienced a lot of that when I first started swimming. Getting into heart and lung conditioning is different than strength training on a lot of different levels. But, it's intense when you really get your heart just like a freaking hummingbird. There's a lot of stuff going on in my own consciousness of like, oh shit, is this good for me? I'm going to have a fucking heart attack, or, whatever the negative thing is. And then it's like, wait, that's an unconscious script that's just going on in the face of this neutral event. Oh yeah, my heart's beating very rapidly. I'm breathing very heavily. But why is there a negative associated with what I'm thinking? I'm going to choose to think, how good this is for my body and how great this is for my breathing in all this life force energy and getting my heart beating and strengthening my heart and lungs and all this. Again, then that's what you're starting to impress by taking those new actions. You're on some level destroying this old concept of self where you were out of shape by taking new action, and that new action lets you program your mind with new beliefs about not only yourself and others, but then also because you're doing that, and your faith and expectancy is in this positive momentum instead of death and decay. It's more of like, oh, I'm getting up today and I'm like fitter than I was yesterday. I got more mobility. Those stretches are starting to pay off. And you really start catching these gains as you start to transform into this new state. But it's a intertwining between your consciousness and your body that you start to become more and more aware of as you are being mindful of the conversation, where it was, oh, I'm just getting so fat and my fucking body hurts and like my joints are just feeling like shit, and all these negatives, all this stuff, all this bullshit to feed your attention. And as you put your attention on the death and the decay and the unconscious, what you don't want your body to be doing, has a especially if you're really reacting to a lot of fear, if you're manifesting a lot of fucked up shit with your body, then it can start to really cascade the problems. And as you're focused that attention on what you don't want, you can unfortunately start to grow it, especially if you're in a state of fear about it. But you can easily start to turn that around by taking new action, by really facing those fears that confront you in the present moment, and not letting them put you into a small box. It's like you feel alive when you face those different challenges and those fears. And it's like you never really have to look that far, because it's always confronting you in the present. There's some glaring weed that's going on in your life, which everything in your life is an externalization of your consciousness, and most importantly, reflective of your relationship with God in relationship to that particular thing, because it's all one thing. You can look at it like a dream, like a hologram, or whatever, but it's all symbolic of the internal consciousness. And the more that you impress your mind with the I am blessed, I am healthy, God is my healer, God is my supply for my strength, when you realize that strength and everything is within your consciousness, like the field of awareness, when you become still and observe your thoughts, you disconnect from the thoughts and you become more of the observer of the thoughts, which makes you more in like a oneness with the field of awareness, which is always waiting to act on your thoughts and your beliefs, consciously and unconsciously. It doesn't matter. It's not selective. It's unselective. It'll give you curses or blessings. It gives you what you say in the present moment. So it's ultra important to be mindful of the present moment, which a lot of people are growing into that understanding, but I know from my own personal experience, before I was really like heavily involved in just being present, I was in this utopia future, sacrificing and grinding the present, chronic stress, chronic fatigue, chronic failure, chronic disappointment. This is like a terrible, this is constantly just the state of waiting. Oh, just waiting on a savior to save me from this thing, not realizing that the savior is within you. But then once you start to make that connection through your own life, through your own demonstration, because you are already doing this. That's the key thing. You are already doing this. You're either doing it well or you're not. And you can tell by the shit shows going on all around you. It's like maybe you got your career on point. You're making lots of like financially abundant. You got solid consciousness for prosperity. Fantastic. But then your marriage with your wife, total fucking train wreck. Or maybe your relationship with your family, your wife is amazing. But your health is a total shit show. It's like. There's these things that are glaringly obvious, especially when you start to really tackle each thing that's like obvious. Like, okay, well, it's really being put into my inner being that I need to do some squats in the morning. It's my own life. It's like I know I need to do that. I'll feel a million times better if I do that. My legs will get stronger if I do that. But then there's this like subtle resistance of like, no, that seems kind of scary and uncomfortable. And what if I hurt myself? And what if this happens? And then distraction, and then it's fleeting. Or the other one that's kind of hitting my radar is like the importance of getting solid sleep at night. Really, just using the time before bed to revise, impress the mind, meditate, connect with God, just feel these different levels of peace, and just really connect with that energy. Well, then and then expand that even more to a restful night's sleep, wake up, feel refreshed and healed and revitalized and all that. It's really important. It's as important as drinking lots of water, but like it's still something I struggle to acquire the discipline to get 8 hours of sleep or get to bed when I'm just like, it's like, midnight. It's like, if I go to bed right now, I can get really good sleep. Next thing you know, it's 1:30. And it's like, what the hell did I just do for 90 minutes? That, it's like so much better than sleep and rest and feeling good tomorrow. Again, it's part of this delayed gratification that you can start to really put into practice. Because you're already experiencing the delayed gratification. If your life's a shit show, it's not really gratifying, but it's a delayed reflection of your consciousness anyway. If you've been planting seeds of fear, seeds of separation, us versus them, hopeless attitude, feeling like a slave, basically, all of these different negative states of being that are directly correlated to the old mindset. that that put God in space, didn't realize, how you're connected with not only your creator, but everybody else, and everything going on in your life is part of a metaphysical law that's like as reliable as when water's 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it freezes. It just is that way. It's not, oh, there's some being that's constantly like, well, let me calculate whether or not to give this to you or not, or let's think about, and it's like, it's always giving it to you. It's like, it's like whatever you're putting into the subconscious, which the subconscious, I don't even believe is a real, I think it's kind of lazy, to assume that there's like this mind that can keep all of these vital functionings going on in our body, just doing all these calculations, doing all this stuff without our help. I mean, it's just doing it. It's keeping your heart beating. It's keeping your blood oxygenated. It's keeping your balance. It's letting you vibrate your ears to resonate with the vibration going on in my voice, to travel through matter into your brain somehow, which then calculates through electricity and synapses, all this. It's like, what? That's so fucking advanced, when you really stop and, just appreciate what's already inherently there. But, and even as you do that, then you actually start to grow what's there by appreciating what you do like and these things that are going correctly. It helps you get out of this mindset of like, oh, God won't heal this area, so I'm just doomed to just decay and get worse and worse. And it's like, if you believe that, it doesn't, it's again, non-selective, curses and blessings. And so you can start actively blessing, the subconscious, which, is something that we're always doing. If you're not conscious, it's being impressed with your fears, most likely, attack thoughts, which you actually don't even want. Sometimes just the psychic energy of other people will somehow make its way into your mind, and you're just like, just like around somebody, and just like some explosively fucked up thought, and it's like, that come from them? It's like, what the fuck? I don't normally think like that. Why is that something in my mind? But the more that you're able to become mindful and still in your consciousness and not just have this constant chitter chatter going on, which, I used to have like nonstop, just let's think about this, let's think about that. That is not how I experience reality. It's like I experience a lot of stillness of mind, a lot, like if I'm playing guitar, it's like there's zero mental activity. It's all just being really in the flow and into it, and just really just like body stuff, but like, and it's actually those thoughts that, of like, oh, don't screw that part up, or, and then has a negative manifestation of fucking a note up, or, just by having that unconscious programming, which then you can kind of replace that through repetition, by taking the action, by, I'm going to play in front of this many people, I'm going to play this many people, and then you don't get that kind of nervous energy or whatever, it just goes away. But again, it's through taking those actions, doing the repetitions, doing like the things that are discipline, to a point where then you realize that, it's infinite intelligence that's doing it. It's guiding you, it's helping you. You can become more like a channel, and it'll use what's going on. But it's like you have to go through this series of events to get to a point of realization within that it's not actually you doing the work. And that's like, no fucking way, Mike. I got to pick up the phone. I got to make these things happen. I got to do this shit. And it's like, okay, I get what you're saying. I've believed that too. But through the taking of action, realizing that God is the supply for the customers, God's the supply for who's ever listening now. Like, it's not an accident or coincidence that you, of all the people that you could be listening to, you're here and now, just hearing this. But to look at our creator, infinite intelligence, as being able to do all things, nothing is impossible. And you believe in limiting things and assumptions that are small, but in letting those things go, a lot of times by just taking new action, by the demonstration, by really putting it into the subconscious, like, no, I am abundant, I am prosperous, I'm healthy, I'm all the things God says I am. That's who I am. Well, no, Mike, you're a worm. You're a fucking dirty sinner. you're this. You're that. And it's like, that sounds satanic. That sounds like something that Satan incarnate would accuse me of being. But anytime you start getting these accusations, even in your own consciousness, you're just like, that's not. Is that what God says you are, or is that what Satan says you are? Well, if you're listening to the wrong guide, there's going to be a correspondence of fear and suffering. because Satan's getting suffering. I mean, the two are kind of one. I mean, it's like, it's, when there's fear, there's torment, and perfect love, which is our Creator, casts out fear. So if you're experiencing any type of fear, there's going to be a torment, a negative consequence to that. And you can track back your mindset and what you're thinking about. A lot of times our emotional energy, it's important to realize that infinite intelligence has a point of view, has a perspective, has a way of looking at it. If you are telling the subconscious mind something that's not in harmony with that, you're going to feel a corresponding negative energy. It's showing you that what you're thinking is out of alignment with your Creator, and to use that time to ask God, okay, well, we're out of harmony. What is actually true then? I'm seeing it like this. I'm wanting to attack it, but you see it some loving way or whatever, some harmonious way. You got the bigger picture. What is it? Like, enlighten me to be able to stand in the face of this without just quivering like a useless person. It's like I want to be able to tackle this, master everything that comes into life, and that's what I feel like is the next logical step in this progression, is just like mastering every area. And not like rejecting it. Oh, I'm like purity spiraling, and I'm so pure and so good, being good for nothing that, but it's more like, oh, I got to cook dinner every day, got to take care of my family every day, I got finances, health, and all these areas where in the past, it's kind of a shit show in some areas. But it's getting more into like, okay, well, I want to have like the ideal body that's in my mind. I want to demonstrate that. I want to feel completely healthy. I want to feel so abundant that I don't even think about bills or money or stress about it, or think about it, or have a, that's the thing too with like, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he had like a business at one point. He had like 20 or 22 employees. And it's like, for a lot of people that have never started a business, or like have this on this pedestal of like, oh, you'll feel like you made it or something, like people will praise you for doing something. For one, that's not the reality. For my reality of that has been experiencing the exact opposite, and people get really sketchy and weird around you. They bring a lot of their excuses to you, and then there's a lot of hate and shit that's just unnecessary and pointless. Mainly because people hate themselves and they project it onto other people, especially if they're doing something that they're really jealous of or whatever. Yeah, they want to lash out and attack. But, the thing of it is, it's like, in talking to him, I mean, just stewarding those kind of payroll checks, every week, and just managing the taxes and the accounting and all this shit. I mean, it's an ordeal to fucking, and even when I had like a little crew of people that I was like doing payroll and everything, it's like, the idea of having this fortune of just like that you can just be handed it, and with the consciousness that you have, be able to fucking manage it. Not only that, but then the people begging you for fucking loans and begging you for handouts, and oh, by the way, they got sick, and can you help out here? And it's like, there is a whole fucking pile of responsibilities and shit that goes along with things. But if you're able to kind of look at your life and really master what's already is, everything is a demonstration of your consciousness. And so by the time you level up in your consciousness of abundance, for one, you're probably not going to have to physically do as much as you used to, where you used to, like, because you believe you have to be the one that's like picking up the phone and making all these moves and calling all these people and inspecting every job and just micromanaging everything. Well, as you start to dial it back and back and back, well, then you start to realize how spiritually it's starting to work out. And now you're trusting the flow of things more. Things are getting more harmony. It's not such a struggle. Now we got some good momentum. Oh, now things are going. Now I can take the day off. Maybe I'll take 3 days off. Maybe I can relax. Maybe I can give, I hate answering the phone. Maybe I'll give that to, them over there, and they can answer the phone for me, take these messages, get this shit done for me. And then you're trusting that infinite intelligence is bringing you the people to be able to manage this, and they can steward that area. And then you can start to dial it back and all that kind of stuff. And so then you get to a point where you're making even more financial shit going on with less physical force and effort. Ultimately, till you get to the point where you totally just trust in the fact that thought is the action that you're taking, and your faith, most importantly. And in that, not to say that you just sit in a corner and things just happen. No, it's like part of it is that's part of the joy of life, is doing shit and getting out there and fucking facing the fears. I mean, people don't ride roller coasters and shit because it's boring. It's like that's part of fucking life, and it's like taking action, fucking swimming in the ocean, doing, just being active, feeling healthy and fit and strong. Being able to take your family out to a restaurant and not even give a fuck about the bill. It's like, give whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Leave a big tip. Flex. It's fun. That's part of the joy of life. I feel like is in taking action. There's like a lot of people I feel like have this negative thing of like, oh, taking action. How dare you? It's like, what do you want to do? Just sit on the couch and just consume, just be plugged into the matrix. But the more that you realize it's cooperative, and like you are a magnet for everything that's going on that you desire. When you let go of the control and stop pushing it away, you're like a magnet for it, and it just keeps coming to you. And it's like, it's like even in my life situation where it's like I don't have a boss, but it's like my days are filled just with things that I'm not even it's just happening. It's like I'm all in the mix of it. It's just like, I'm incredibly busy at times, where it's just like, play guitar at church and practice on Wednesdays, get to church early on Sundays, work with my handyman business, then it's like go to the gym, you go do all this and cook dinner and do the chores around the house. You got the chickens, and it's like all of these things are part of like just life, and it's just like the argument I have for people that just want to sit and just like I get it, it's like, and it could just be a misunderstanding where it's just like, oh, you're just manifesting, so you take no action. It's like, then what do you want to do? Just think? It's like, yeah, thinking is the action in the sense that you planted the seed in the subconscious, and it will manifest in God's perfect ways and perfect timing in the unfolding present. But if you're focused on planting seeds of like things that just make you feel good, that feel exciting, exhilarating, fun, make you feel free, make you feel fit, make you feel strong, all these kinds of things that merely just feel you full of just energy of this life. You don't want to just sit around. It's boring to sit around. Sit around and what? Stagnate and decay. I don't even feel like heaven is just sitting around just fucking loafing on a cloud, just playing a harp and, oh, what am I going to do for the next 1,000 years? I don't know. Maybe sit on that side of the cloud for a while. It's like, what? And so, with that being said, I just wanted to bring that to you guys. I think I'm going to balance. My wife should be back home here shortly. I'm getting ready to go swimming actually at the Y. I was like hoping to go earlier, but we had the funeral and all that, and my stepdaughter's getting her hair cut or something, or hair dyed, or I'm not sure, but like they should be back any minute, and so really look forward to that time. It's like there was a time where like the idea of exercising felt like toxin to me. But, my lifestyle at that point was a real fucking shit show. There was a time like the only normal thing I was doing was like taking the garbage out occasionally, maybe once or twice a month. But, I was like such a drunk for like most of my 20s. It's just like, I have these like fucking super intense hangovers. The only thing I really like to do is get drunk, play music, fuck women, party, repeat. That was the only thing I was doing. It was real, oh, Mike, that sounds so fun. And it's like, yeah, for a while, it was fun, but then it got really dark and really depressing, and then I got arrested a whole bunch, and then there was a bunch of legal drama that just started manifesting with that fucked up state, and DUIs, times in jail, house arrest, shit show, violating probation, public intox, the whole thing was such a nightmare, looking back, and, going from that, it's like, yeah, that was fun, I guess. Like I have like this weird nostalgia where I kind of look back at times like, oh, that would, I wonder, if I did it again, if I just did that again, could I master it now? It's like, no, that's a great way to relapse. But it's like, it's one of those things. This is just where I'm coming from. You can live your life however you want, but for me, kind of resonate more with people that are taking action, that are doing things in their community and whatnot. And so like, for people that don't realize the importance, your thought, words, and deed, all three are really important to be doing. So much of it has to be is taking the action. It's like, well, when you're going to start your diet, you are already dieting. It's like you're already living by a diet. You're just maybe living by one that's not a good one or is not effective, or you're planting seeds in the subconscious, or you're getting body dysmorphia, or who knows. It's like, you should get to a point where you feel a certain way. It's like you feel maybe attractive, or you feel handsome if you're a man, or feel sexy or beautiful if you're a woman. It's like you just feel magnetic. You feel like people are drawn to you or something. However, versus feeling like repulsive and people are like, ugh, it's like you spend the present moment either way. But it's like God created you as a masterpiece, so it's like if you aren't feeling like one, well, there's things going on to let go of so that you can naturally feel the way you should. Biggest thing to do is like the new action in the present moment. But it takes the discipline, which is something that you learn through repetition, doing it over and over again, because we're already doing it over and over again. The problem is people are doing their fears over and over again in these spirals and doubling down on that shit and experiencing more what they don't want. But hey, how long do you feel like suffering until you choose not to is really the name of the game. So, with that being said, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support, physical support, support link in the description. Thank you for that. I appreciate all the kind messages that go along with those. It really feels good to, hear how things are affecting other people, because like you never really know what you're saying, what you're doing, how that influences other people in a positive way. I was at that funeral, like I said, and people were like sharing things with me where it's just like, oh, I didn't realize that had an effect on you the way it did. It's like a lot of times you say something to the other person and it's like, I don't know how they took that, because I used to think I knew, but then over the years, then you say stuff, and then people parrot the stuff back to you in an entirely different way than what you said. It's like, whoa, I guess we're not communicating correctly, So, hopefully, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but with that being said, I'm going to bounce. Thanks everybody again for your attention for this long, and until the next now, God bless.